Welcome to the National Institute for Health and Care Research in this professional development series. I'm Julie Haddock-Millar and I'm one of the programme facilitators. In this webinar, we're going to consider the roles of the mentor and mentee. And it will be no longer than 10 minutes. So the agenda. We'll explore the different roles of the mentor and the mentee. We'll also look at some key responsibilities, and I'll provide some reflective questions and signpost some support materials to follow this session. So the roles of the mentor, first of all. Mentors will often adopt a variety of different roles in the mentoring relationship. Now, these roles can depend on context, situation, and the needs of the mentee. So it's very helpful at the beginning of the mentoring relationship to think about the different roles and to explore these together as a mentee and a mentor and consider the needs. On this slide, I provided a summary of 8 different roles. Now, these are not all of the roles, but they are the most frequently cited in any impact evaluations of mentoring studies and programs. And what I'm going to do now is just take you through each one. The first is professional friend. This is regarded as one of the key roles of a mentor in any mentoring relationship. It tends to be associated with very lengthy mentoring relationships, so perhaps 1 to 2 years, or mentoring relationships where the mentor and the mentee might describe that over time they've transitioned into an informal mentoring relationship where they regard one another as a professional friend. Sounding board. This is where the mentee might present ideas or might present a project proposal to their mentor and utilise the mentor as a sounding board for their thoughts, opinions and ideas. We tend to see this role in the entrepreneurship space. So often where a novice entrepreneur might be developing a new innovation, for example, and they're working with a very experienced entrepreneur. The reflector, very much associated with mentoring, holding up the mirror, helping the mentee to reflect and make sense of the situation. One of the roles most cited by both mentors and mentees on mentoring programs. Challenger. So this is where, as a mentor, you might use a consistent level of challenge that enables a mentee to access new points of understanding or insight. Now, initially, the mentee or mentor might not be comfortable with challenge. So often it's useful to ask the question towards the beginning of the relationship, how much challenge feels appropriate, comfortable, uncomfortable perhaps, and to have that conversation. Confidant. So this is where there's a high degree of trust and rapport in the mentoring relationship, where mentees can share their deepest thoughts and feelings in a safe space. Often, what mentees will describe is that it's very helpful to have a mentor that is outside of their institution, their organisation, or even their professional discipline. So they're outside of their network and their circle of colleagues, and that enables them to feel safe and to work in that space. Performance coach. Now, this is where in the mentoring relationship, you might focus on a very specific aspect. It might be related to performance, it might be career related, it might be transitioning, for example, into a leadership position. So it tends to be associated with coaching, and that's why we have performance coach in this slide. But as I say, tends to be focused on a specific aspect of development. Role model. Often mentees are searching for a role model in their mentors, someone that can share stories of what they might have experienced, someone that can be compassionate, provide that empathy and understanding, which can be very helpful. Guide, again, another role that is very much associated with mentoring. Now, typically we might imagine a guide walking in front of us if we were navigating new terrain. In the context of mentoring, we tend to see guides as walking alongside us. So walking side by side, exploring the space, navigating together, for example. Thinking through options, thinking through ideas. Sometimes the guide might signpost, might provide that guidance, that advice by signposting. For example, have you thought about this? Have you contacted this organisation? So very helpful in accessing sometimes resources. And again, this is the summary slide with the 8 different roles. So it's very helpful at the beginning of the mentoring relationship as a mentor and a mentee together to explore, as a mentor, which roles are you most comfortable and least comfortable in? As a mentee, which role would you appreciate most? There might be several here. And of course, the needs might change as you progress in your mentoring relationship. It might be initially, as a mentee, you might be looking for a role model and confidant. As time progresses, you might be looking for more challenge, a sounding board. So there's also a consideration of being dynamic in the role. Now, for the mentee, there's very little literature about roles, but there is a significant amount of literature and studies about responsibilities. So on this slide, what we see primarily is role and responsibilities. And there's a list here, and I'll just highlight perhaps 1 or 2. So the first, taking ownership of the learning. Incredibly important for the mentee to take responsibility for their own learning and development, to arrive at each mentoring session, having spent some time preparing for the session, perhaps designing the agenda. What would you like to get out of that session? The enthusiasm and commitment, showing that drive for learning, following up on commitments that have been made, and the valuing of one another. The mentee valuing the mentor for their contribution, the mentor valuing the mentee, what the mentee brings to the mentoring relationship. So the what next? A couple of reflective questions. So you might want to consider, as I said, as a mentor, roles that you feel most and least comfortable with. As a mentee, what roles would you find most useful? And also as a mentee, how might you drive the relationship and the mentoring sessions? We have a topic guide to accompany this session, and within the topic guide there are also links to further reading. And I've just extracted a couple here of journal articles that you may be interested in reading more, and the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development fact sheet for coaching and mentoring, useful for some key highlights there. And if you have any questions at all, of course, you can contact the programme team at the development support email provided on this slide. Thanks so much.